Day radio show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. It feels so incredibly good to be back. That was a little Dame time, courtesy of TNT. It is no longer Dame time in Milwaukee. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll relate it to the Packers a little bit as well. We've got some Packers to talk about. We've got some Brewers to talk about. We've, of course, got a lot of Milwaukee Bucks to talk about. Sarah Kelleher is going to be helping us out. Pack a Day podcast. She's going to be joining us 8:20 a.m. today. Also would love for you to join the show. Nicolay Law Fan talking text line 414-677-1250. In the meantime, let's see if I remember how to do this. Tommy, first and foremost, before we get into anything else, a huge, massive thank you to you for holding the ship down while I was gone, for not, I don't think, breaking anything too egregiously. But no, appreciate you a ton. And how did everything go over the past week plus on the Pack a Day radio show?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people, Andy, that are excited to have you back and are sick of me by now because I guess I have a little more of a negative tone when it comes to talking about the Green Bay Packers offseason and the 2025 season. I tried to think it was more realistic than it was negative, but super excited to have you back. How was Spain, my man?
Spain was phenomenal. Tenerife was everything as advertised. Kids had a blast. The water park there was beyond amazing. Did the giant drop. Never have done anything like that before. Never did the one at Wisconsin Dells. And they usually like, all right, let my kids go. It's a weird thing. I've usually shied away my entire life from all like the crazy rides and like the big drops and everything like that. When you have a kid that's 8, 9, 10, 11 years old and they're able to do it, it really puts, it's like, all right, if my son can do this, I should be able to do this. So it's really sort of opened me up to some different roller coasters and water park rides and things like that. So did the big drop. That was a blast. Yeah, the city was great, right on the ocean. It's remarkable how, like, I don't understand how a place can be like 85 and sunny, perfect breeze, no bugs, no, like, there's no screens on the windows. You just open the doors and the windows and everything. The fresh air comes in. There's nothing comes. It's just, I don't know. It's unbelievably perfect. Highly recommend. Madrid was a little hot. It was in like the 96, 97 degree range. So we had to have like little, side quests to do on our way to things that we wanted to do. Stop and get a Coke or something like that. So the kids wouldn't overheat too much, but the entire experience was phenomenal. Had a blast. And, but yes, good to be back talking Packers. That's for sure.
I wouldn't be close friends with Mitch Thundernellis if I didn't ask what was the best thing you ate while you were there, Andy. Was there anything, because I know you're a picky eater at that too. What was the best thing you ate over in Spain?
Yeah, I have to be very careful with enunciation because there's a lot of tapas bars in Spain. It sounds very close to topless bars in Spain. We did not go to any topless bars. We did go to a lot of tapas restaurants and tapas bars. But no, a lot of tapas. My kids ate a lot of seafood. Probably the best thing I ate was there's a couple very Italian themed, wood-fired pizza places that we kind of went to in both cities, actually. So that was fantastic. And then our last night there, we were actually planning on going to an Italian-type restaurant, and it was too busy, couldn't get in. So we went to this place down the street from it, which we also had on our list. And it was phenomenal. It was a true, authentic, Spanish tapas bar. But the food was just incredible. Some really unique takes on stuff. I tried blood sausage for the first time. Not really, trying to do that, but that is something that happened. But yeah, it was a really fun experience, and the food was fantastic. And yeah, nothing even remotely negative to say. The whole experience was amazing.
That's awesome. Glad to have you back. Glad to be talking some sports. If you leave, just so you know, everything that's not related to the Green Bay Packers happens. Like the entire world has changed for that week and a half. That was not involving the Green Bay Packers. Everything else changed. Nothing else changed.
It's funny because this is for NFL like content creators. Like this is your 1 month where you get legitimately off. Like in February, there's still the Super Bowl and you get ready for free agency. In March is free agency. April's the draft. May is the follow-up to the draft, OTAs, mini camps. June, you still have some OTAs, mini camps. And then from about end of June until training camp starts is about a 5-week period where legitimately nothing happens. So you see like every NFL content creator is traveling somewhere or going to, Door County or whatever the case may be, just to kind of get away for as much time as they can, because then training camp starts, which we're now, just a couple weeks away basically. and everything is warp speed up until basically that time again, where you have kind of that 5-week period where everything's off. So it is definitely planned a little bit that way. So I feel for you a little bit that you got dead zoned during this past week. But it was not obviously dead zoned from a Bucks and Brewers standpoint. Like you said, lots of things have changed. Andrew Vaughn's hitting home runs for the Brewers. That's the least of it, of course. But I want to get there. This is kind of going to be a week in review. You're going to help me, Tommy, kind of understand everything that took place. So let me start by asking you. You asked me what was the best thing I did and ate in Spain. What was the best thing that happened on the Pack-A-Day radio show over the last week plus?
Well, we had a lot of theme days, if you will. Okay.
Love it.
And so a lot of it revolved around pressure on the first day. Pressure was a big theme, and basically asking around who had the most pressure on the Green Bay Packers. We had a ranking day. We had a day where we were going through lists of where the quarterbacks and head coaches in the NFL might have ranked across the NFL, and comparing and asking if those were fair rankings for Packers players during those. We had an expectation day, and then on top of that, we did the all-quarter century Green Bay Packer team on Thursday, I believe, as well. So the all-quarter century team was pretty fun. That was a good time. I think the list was 100% correct. No controversy at all on there. But also it was good to hear from some of the fans pretty much talking about expectations being high maybe isn't fair for the Green Bay Packers this year in terms of where they think they are talent-wise compared to the rest of the NFC North. Not that they don't have high hopes for the Green Bay Packers, but really, what have they earned to gather these high expectations if you are having Super Bowl aspirations and NFC Championship aspirations for the Green Bay Packers? What have they done this offseason that really made them earn those into next season? So I think that was actually maybe some of the more interesting conversation we got to have on the Green Bay Packers on the Pack-A-Day radio show.
Awesome. I love it. So I want to start with that last one first, because I think it's a really interesting topic of conversation and something that I've actually personally been struggling with as of late. So let me ask you this. How do I want to phrase this? If the Packers do not win a Super Bowl this year, can they have a successful season?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think yes. I think because of Jordan Love, you win 2 playoff games, it's his best season ever, right? I mean, just by default, if he gets to that point. I know that when people talk about pressure and we compared the head coach, Matt LaFleur, and the quarterback, Jordan Love, I think a lot of people were more concerned about the pressure on Matt LaFleur as opposed to on Jordan Love in year 3, which I don't know if that's necessarily fair or just, because I am very high on Jordan Love, I think, as a quarterback in the NFL. But I understand that Matt LaFleur has been there, right? Matt LaFleur has been to the NFC Championship games, and he's done it with, Aaron Rodgers. And Bart Winkler had a pretty good line where this seems like his first coaching job. The first job he had with the Green Bay Packers was managing the team, not necessarily coaching the team, because Aaron Rodgers was at the helm. He knew what he wanted to do. He had his, preparations and other plans during game day and whatnot. And that was more of a management job. Whereas now with Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur really has a lot of pressure to show that he can coach Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting conversation as well. Where I'm struggling is I think inherently, and just kind of what's baked in us as Packers fans, is your job is to go out and win a Super Bowl. And certainly in the areas of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and I think even now to some extent with Jordan Love, to a lesser extent for sure, your goal, and the Packers don't really shy away from it either, the goal is championships. I think the answer to my own question is, if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, I don't think it can technically be a successful season. I think that you're probably not wrong in the fact that there's maybe a thin line there somewhere where if Jordan Love plays like a top 5 quarterback and they go out and win a couple playoff games, and the young players like Matthew Golden looks fantastic, and we really see some legitimate steps from some of these young players. Edgerrin Cooper maybe looks like one of the best linebackers in football. There's probably a line there where maybe you get a disappointing loss in an NFC Championship game, but everything really looked fantastic. Maybe you went 13-4 along the way, 2 playoff wins. It's a 15-5 season. And again, everything is really trending in the right direction. And you kind of finally legitimize the fact that you've got a real potential star quarterback and somebody that is legitimately, again, at least a potential top 5 guy. I think if you can get there, there's probably a way to have a successful season. But at the same time, again, there's sort of this expectation as a Packers fan where you're playing to win a Super Bowl. And it's this weird juxtaposition in the fact that the Packers right now, per the Potawatomi Sportsbook, are plus 2,200 to win a Super Bowl. The implied odds of that are 4.35%. So they've got a little above a 4% chance to win a Super Bowl. So we're like 96% setting ourselves up for failure if you're thinking like it's Super Bowl or bust. That's the only way for you to have a successful season. But it is this weird connotation, and it's this weird, again, juxtaposition of, I do kind of feel like if you really want to have a truly successful season, you've got to win a Super Bowl, but the odds of it happening are so insanely slim. So how do you justify that at the end of the year if and when they don't win a Super Bowl? Of like, and again, it probably depends on where they came in that sliding scale of what their season looked like, but falling short of those extremely lofty, extremely high expectations, I don't know that I would necessarily deem it, I guess, a failure, but it's hard to wrap my mind over, can it be a success unless you actually hoist that Super Bowl trophy, which again is stupid, ridiculous expectations.
Yeah, I do think that I like your points of seeing, when we talk about the expectations for the Green Bay Packers, we lay out individual expectations as well when we do that. And if the team goal does not succeed and does not happen for the Green Bay Packers, if that goal is win a Super Bowl, then there are definitely milestones and accolades that can come along the way that can prove a successful season, right? If Jordan Love is the MVP, is that a not successful season for Jordan Love? I don't think you can't say that, right? If we see what we think we can get out of Savion Williams and Matthew Golden, and Aaron Banks looks like an all-pro left guard during this process while Nate Hobbs wins Defensive Player of the Year, right? I mean, there are milestones and moments where you can say, hey, that was a successful season as far as you saw the vision. You saw what could happen, right? The season, I go back and look at, like the Seahawks NFC, 2014 NFC Championship game, right? Everything happens for a reason in that playoff where there's a domino effect of one play is screwing over another team onto the next week all the way until the Super Bowl when it was the Lions in the wild card week of was it not a catch or catch, right? And then it goes all the way to the Super Bowl where they're running the ball and they're throwing the ball on the 1 yard line, right? I don't necessarily deem that as a unsuccessful season. It's a disappointing end to the season, right? That's more or less what it is. We've all seen a great movie where the ending left us like, what? Come on, what do you mean? And we still appreciate the movie. Everyone just remembers the last impression on it, and that's what you get when you don't win a Super Bowl, is it's a lasting impression. Now, we're one of the 31 teams that lost the last football game we played while we're waiting all the way until September to play another one.
It's a fair assessment. Has there ever been a movie that you say that you love that you hated the ending though?
I will say that I can think of it with a television show, and How I Met Your Mother comes immediately to mind, where the show is phenomenal and the ending is just so put together and makes no sense to me at all. But yeah, I mean, I think there's countless examples of media like that where you can just say, hey, I was really into this, and then all of a sudden I got pretty off put right at the end, right?
Yeah, Lost would probably be another one of those where the ending certainly did not land. The journey was fun along the way, but you clearly could tell there was some writing mistakes that were made towards the end of that show, and they didn't exactly know where they were heading at times. So I think that's fair. I'm going to be interested to see how that kind of plays out through the course of the year of, kind of the reality versus expectations and how the season goes. Hopefully they just win a Super Bowl and then we can just enjoy that and not have to worry about it one way or the other. But obviously, Tommy, we had a lot of other stuff that happened through the course of the week as well. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Obviously, this is the Pack-A-Day radio show, but from a Wisconsin sports standpoint, it was a huge week in the entirety of the Milwaukee Bucks franchise. And it did sort of correlate a little bit to that feeling you had when the Packers signed Josh Jacobs and you're like, oh, Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones in the same backfield. That's really going to be interesting because clearly they're not going to cut Aaron Jones. And then they immediately cut Aaron Jones. You're like, oh, well, that was fun for a half an hour until we got the realization that Aaron Jones is getting cut. It had a very similar feel in the moment of like, oh, Miles Turner, that's going to be interesting. And, if Dame could really make it back next year and healthy, or even some point this year, and you've got Dame and Giannis and Turner, like, yeah, that could be really interesting. And then, they stretched and released Damian Lillard. How did your initial feel and reaction kind of go to that? And how was it maybe felt in Milwaukee when all the news came down?
Yeah, Andy, I think that's a phenomenal comparison that was not made, and didn't even think of it until then, but that was very similar to the vibe, right? It's like, oh, we're going to have this thunder and lightning duo of Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. Oh, no, now we have just Josh Jacobs, which it worked out great for the Green Bay Packers in the end, and it was all fine. But I understand that vibe completely, is that we were live on air, the Mason Crosby show, and Mitch freaks out. Miles Turner sees it come across his screen, and everyone's freaking out. We immediately switch the topic. Everyone's talking about it, and it's a great time. And then I had to be the guy, of course, that is paying attention and following up on this story. Like 2 minutes later, oh, there's bad news on this. And the vibe does switch up. But I think from a Bucks fan standpoint, I look at the move, and all I can do is just think John Horst might be the best GM that we will ever see in my lifetime in a Wisconsin sport, because how he was able to pull it off. The move to get rid of Damian Lillard, I know he was a fan favorite. The move when it happened, everyone was excited when Damian Lillard was coming in to Milwaukee, but he wasn't going to play this season. You're dealing with national media outlets countlessly saying that Giannis is not happy, or you are not trying to make Giannis happier by being in the position you are in, and he found a way to get into another new position. This isn't an NFL or an NBA free agency class that was anything to write home about. Some people might have considered Miles Turner the best free agent in free agency available this year, and a lot of people didn't think he was available. The behind-the-scenes work to make the deal happen, I'm a little bit concerned about the Dame deal just because of the history that comes with it. I don't know if you saw this, Andy. It's the largest buyout ever, and it's not even close. The previous record was $31 million, and this one is $112 million. So it's never been a move that we have seen in NBA history, but I love the brain, that the brain that is John Horst, to have the creativity and really the opposite of Moneyball, but along the lines of just trying to find some way different to think to make your team competitive year in and year out. I couldn't be more impressed with his work. I thought it was a fantastic move. I don't know if it's elevating the Bucks to the best team in the East, but I think it makes them much more competitive next season than it was going to.
This is another talking, not to use, I think, juxtaposition for the third time in one segment here, but it's a really interesting just conversation of, it's a really creative way of building this roster. And I love John Horst's creativity. I love the things that he is willing to do. I think when you have a superstar in the NBA like Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have to be creative, you have to be aggressive, and there is no tomorrow. You play for today, and you figure out the rest later. I think that clearly they did some things prior to Drew Holiday that didn't work out the best. Some Eric Bledsoe stuff, obviously not all in the John Horst era. We should mention that. But they did some things from a Bucks standpoint that didn't always work out, but they were close. And then you ended up in a situation where the Drew Holiday trade was phenomenal, worked out. They ended up winning a championship with the Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, Lopez group of players, and getting PJ Tucker during that was a massive swing that really connected, that was needed for that team. And then you end up obviously going in the Dame situation. And listen, we can benefit of hindsight this all we want. You do that trade to me 100 times out of 100.
Absolutely.
Leading into that, I was so geeked out. I was so excited about how that would look, how that would play, and having Dame and Giannis together. I, regardless of the outcome, I wanted to see that, to see how it could go. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and of course, the Achilles injury was really brutal for a variety of different reasons. But you start thinking of, like, how are they going to do this now? Like, they've got so much money tied into Dame. And they really kind of found a way, because what they would really have been paying for is $120 million in 2 years for 1 year post Achilles Damian Lillard at a very old age. And instead, they're going to pay it over 5 years and open up salary cap space to go and get Miles Turner. Now, I think the onus is on the Bucks. If you're going to go this aggressive, if you're going to swing for the fences with this type of move, I don't think you can half measure this. I think you have to utilize your unprotected 2032 first round pick, all of your swaps, all of your young assets, everything you can. You've got to find a way to trade Kuzma and Portis and turn that into a big time legitimate guard or wing to add one more piece to this team. You're hoping that, an AJ Green, a Kevin Porter Jr., I think that Gary Trent deal was unbelievable that they were able to get that done the way that they did. You've got to hope that some of those guys step up and that you have Miles Turner, Giannis, and one more. I'm not saying it's going to be like a big three sort of thing going on, but one more big piece. Maybe they can get Bradley Beal on the buyout. That would be huge because then you still have Bradley Beal and that one more swing you can take. There's avenues here that make this very intriguing. And as we've seen, you just need the right team to get hot at the right time and to avoid injuries, and you've got a puncher's chance at this thing. It's hard for me to get to the point of I think this team can be the best team in the NBA, better than the OKCs, better than some of the up-and-coming teams that are out there. But I think it's an interesting swing. I'm not mad at it. I think it's going to have some long-term consequences. But we also sort of know that Giannis is going to have some insane trade value if and when that happens. Miles Turner's actually going to have trade value where Dame did not. And I do think that you could actually get some really unique, fun, young pieces to rebuild this thing if and when you need to go in that direction, if this home run swing ends up striking out and you don't end up with the core that you want. We'll talk maybe about that a little bit more as we get into our third segment today, Tommy. We do have Sarah Kelleher coming up here in just a moment. I want to talk some Brewers with you as well. The Miz apparently is not perfect. I want to talk about that, but they've had some good luck as of late, 3 of their last 4, and of course a huge win against the Dodgers yesterday, so we'll touch base on that a little bit. Again, maybe we'll bring up the Bucks a little bit more, and of course a lot of Packers coming up with Sarah Kelleher in just a moment. If you missed anything, check us out. If you missed anything on all those great conversations with Tommy this past week, check it out over on the free Odyssey app or go to thefanmilwaukee.com. We'll be right back with Sarah Kelleher. Right now, 66 and mostly cloudy in Milwaukee, high of 88, or high of 80. My goodness, see, weather reads, it's going to come back to me, Tommy. I'll get there eventually.
About Spain. Stop thinking about Spain.
Thinking about Spain. High of 80, low of 66, which is right here and now. This is the Pack a Day radio show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, empowered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11. Also join Packers all-time leading scorer Mason Crosby and Hall of Fame wide receiver Jordy Nelson at the Beloit Brouhaha Softball Slam. It's an awesome name. Charity softball game on July 27th at ABC Supply Stadium that will feature football legends in Wisconsin and Illinois celebrities to raise money for Make-A-Wish Wisconsin. Register for your chance to win tickets at thefanmilwaukee.com. Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Sarah Kelleher. You can find her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4, of course, on the Pack a Day podcast as well. Sarah, my apologies for keeping you waiting. I got a little excited in my first segment back, talking some Packers, talking some Damian Lillard news as well. But there's nobody I'd rather be talking with from a knowledge standpoint, from a friendly standpoint, than you coming back on my first day. How the heck are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Andy? It's great to be back chatting with you. And honestly, I'm excited that you're back. I missed, hearing your voice and seeing some of the content.
Well, I appreciate that a ton. It's definitely weird, when I take that week off and just getting kind of back in the swing of things of recording podcasts and doing the radio show and all those sort of things. But it's good to get back in the swing and back in the routine of everything. Like I said, nobody I'd rather be chatting with right here than the one and only Sarah Kelleher. Of course, there's a lot to talk about, even in this dead period from a Packers standpoint, Sarah. I know you guys, Dusty, Steve, and yourself have been doing a great job of bringing up all these different amazing kind of topics of conversation during this time frame. One of them I'm really interested and excited to talk about that you guys talked about recently. But before we get there, I want to start with Christian Watson, because I think this is one of the more interesting aspects. We saw some video of him recently doing some field work, which is just I get that NFL players are aliens in and of themselves and some of the stuff. I had a friend tear his ACL, and it would like he couldn't move still at this point, I swear. And here Christian Watson's running around and doing routes. It's really remarkable to see. I don't want to change his trajectory or put higher expectations on him in any way. We have no idea how this is going to work out and how he's, feeling from a football readiness standpoint. But if he does, come back even a little bit sooner, or even if he's just actual Christian Watson when he does come back, how important could that potentially be for Green Bay?
I mean, it's absolutely huge. I mean, you saw last season and years prior that when he's out on the field, the Packers are a better football team. He can stretch the offense in a way that really nobody else can that's on the roster right now, and is clearly one of Jordan Love's favorite targets. So when he's there and he's healthy, that's another weapon in their arsenal. And it's great to see this progress. I mean, running at 6 months, which is about where we're at since he tore his ACL, that's not super out of the ordinary, but it's those deep cuts and the route running that we saw in those videos that really is remarkable. And it makes me excited about his recovery, his timeline, and hopefully, I know the Packers are always slow to bring guys back from injury, but I'm just hopeful that when he comes back, he'll be 100% and that there'll be no concerns or fear. A lot of it, at that stage is mental too, of just, yes, he's route running and looks good doing that. But then when you get hit and there's contact, it's a whole different ball game. So I'm just excited to see, him progress this way, because if he's there, the Packers are 100% a better football team, and it's a game changer for the offense.
So much of what Christian does isn't available in the box score. You might look and it might be, 3 catches for, 55 yards or something like that. And it may not look like, oh my God, Christian had a crazy day. He's one of the best blockers out there at wide receiver for his teammates, which is really important. I think him and Dontavian Wicks do such a great job of setting his other teammates up for success. And then also just the ability to stretch the field deep and open some of that stuff up underneath when he's dragging a safety with him down the field, because, some of these corners just can't stick with him from a pure speed standpoint. You add that on the field and it just opens up things for everyone else. And if you get that, listen, even when he just comes back, even if for the first game or two, you put him more in vertical routes so he doesn't have to do the crazy in-breaking cuts and things like that, and have him dig out some linebackers as a blocker on the outside. There's so much that he brings to the table just with that in and of itself that, man, if they get him back and he is Christian Watson, even if it's 95, 98%, whether that's in week 10 or week 12, 13, wherever that might be, to me, that is such a huge win. And it's almost like getting a player at the trade deadline, because I think they're going to be able to more than survive with the wide receivers that they have in the meantime. But man, getting a player like that, whatever it may be midway through the season, I just think it gives you a shot in the arm offensively.
Absolutely.
All right, as we kind of transition here to the next topic of conversation, Sarah, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is just a roster battle that you are championing at the bit for as we get into the start of training camp. What battle are maybe we not talking about, or just one that you're super excited for as we open up training camp here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, one I'm excited to see that really is just intriguing because I think there's a lot going on and a few different ways they could go about this is safety. So, last year there's this big shakeup. They kind of bring in a new crew. Obviously, McKinney is the leader of that effort, and then they draft Bullard and Williams. And Williams definitely had the better season production-wise on paper. He gets all rookie honors nods, but was super limited with injury. I think he played 13 games or so, and Bullard had some issues with injuries as well, that come out later in the season, but his production just wasn't as high. But does it have anything to do with the injury? Who knows? That came out after the season that he had surgery and he said he wasn't himself. So just really curious to see these two guys healthy, go head to head, and what that looks like in training camp. And, based off the tape, I lean towards Williams a bit, but I think it'll be a good battle and it's something to keep an eye on in camp. And it's also, if you flip it on the other side, really good for the offense as well, that there's going to be two guys competing for a spot and performing, trying to perform at the highest level and pushing guys on the other side of the ball as well. So just excited to see how that shakes out and what we see in training camp.
I'm glad that you brought up safety because I think it has been a less talked about position. Even if Xavier McKinney, we know, is just obviously the one, and let's just say Williams wins the two and they put Bullard more in the slot, and that doesn't end up being maybe the competition, the competition behind even the top two. I think Katana Ladapo did a great job when given an opportunity a season ago. Zane Anderson did a great job when he got an opportunity a season ago. I'm not necessarily saying Oladapo or Zane are going to push for starting reps or anything like that, but just even the competition for potentially the number 3 and the number 4 safety and how those guys kind of compete for those spots, I think is going to be really fun. I think they have a really great safety room. I'm really excited to see just how that kind of plays out. I do think there's an opportunity for somebody like a Katana Ladapo to maybe earn some more snaps in the defense this upcoming season. I'm excited to see if he can do that as well. Kind of in that same vein as we're being joined by Sarah Kelleher. You can find her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4, right here live on the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, and the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. Who is maybe a player that we're not talking about enough? And again, you can go in any direction. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, maybe it's just somebody that's kind of been ignored through the offseason. Who's a player that you're kind of keeping an extra eye on that maybe is just, again, not been talked about much?
Well, if you listen to the Wednesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast, you're probably sighing right now because you already know what my answer is going to be, and that's Marshawn Lloyd. And it's just because I feel like with the terrible injury luck and honestly health luck that he had last season and the shine of Josh Jacobs and how well he did, it was almost like everyone forgot, like, hey, we have this other guy that is super good. And I'm not saying, he's definitely going to be in that RB2 slot and complement Josh Jacobs, but the thought of the two of them together, at least to me, is so exciting. Having this and where they're able to do that, it's just absolutely incredible to think about. He's a guy that he checks all the boxes physically. He has that dog mentality and really just looks like he could run people over. And when you think about Packers football late in the winter, having both of those guys there together, I couldn't be more excited about that and really just can't wait to see how he looks because we haven't really seen anything. I mean, there is virtually no tape besides, a few snaps here and there. And so I'm excited to just finally get to see what he's about because everything I've heard, the limited things that we've seen have really excited me.
I don't want to put, again, too high expectations on the player, and the snake bit injury stuff last year was just remarkable. Like every week it felt like something new. I felt so terrible for him. But going back to training camp last year, and I think part of this was Josh Jacobs just knowing how to ramp up as well and knowing that, hey, I don't need to be given 130% in week 2 of training camp. But there were times in camp last year, legitimately, that Marshawn Lloyd looked like the best running back in training camp for the Green Bay Packers, which again is saying something because Josh Jacobs is there. But that's how good he looked. He had a level of just speed and acceleration and cuts that had brought some real home run hitting type threats. And I think if you add that to the offense, it was interesting. Matt LaFleur last year was asked a question at some point during the season, or maybe it was the offseason, I forget which it was at this point, but about how you can get more explosiveness out of, he was kind of asked about like the wide receivers, like how can you get some more big plays? And just without even, being asked about Marshawn Lloyd, brought up Marshawn Lloyd as one of those explosive playmakers that could be utilized in the offense, once he could get back from the injury. And it just unfortunately didn't end up happening that way. But I do think he can be a playmaker for Green Bay. And I'm right there with you. I'm so excited to see what he can do. There's a couple like Savion Williams, Marshawn Lloyd. If just a couple of those, you get a little bit more out of it, like maybe than what we're expecting, could really be some interesting X factors for that Packers offense. Again, being joined by Sarah Kelleher at Sarah Kelleher4, and of course on the Pack a Day podcast with Dusty Evely and Steve Perhatch. All right, let me ask you this: Super Bowl expectations are somewhat there for Green Bay. I was talking to Tommy about that in our opening segment today. Outside of the clear and obvious, all right, Jordan Love being amazing. If he's all of a sudden a top 3 quarterback, that would clearly give Green Bay a little bit more oomph to make that run to a Super Bowl. Outside of Jordan Love just being incredible, what other development for this team would give you the most hope for a Super Bowl run for Green Bay?
Yeah, for me, it's not even a specific player or position group. It's honestly just finding an identity. When you think back at the best Packers teams, even those that didn't go all the way and win a Super Bowl, like look at 2020, for example, which was a year where many of us probably think that they should have. You knew every week we were going to sit down and watch Rodgers and the offense be an absolute machine. 2014, you knew they were going to lean on a unique run game and do that. And so there's always been an identity, a clear identity in the best Packers teams. And we've talked about the age of this roster and how they're young. Now they're a little more experienced, and I think it's time that they find their identity. When you think of the Green Bay Packers in 2025, what do you think of? Are you going to think of an explosive offense, a consistent defense? And I think they just have to be able to find themselves in that way so that every week when we sit down and watch our favorite team play, we at least know what we're going to get. And there may be some creative wrinkles that are thrown in there or some things we weren't expecting, but we know for sure this is the team. I think with the transition to Jordan Love and then last year with his injury and how they were managing that, there was just so much inconsistency that they never really found their way exactly of who they are and who this team is. And so if they want to make a run and go to the Super Bowl, we have to know who they are. They have to show us, whether, again, are they going to be a team that's led by their defense, led by their offense? Is it a combination of both? So they have to find that. And I'm curious what it is, because I think, they could go a few different ways on that, and we'll probably hopefully see it early in the season and they can build on it. But that's just something that in the last few years, they've been so young. We haven't seen them have a true identity besides being the youngest team.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how much I love that answer. It's something that I feel like has been lacking for Green Bay, is that like, what are we going to be? I felt like they were better on defense. I thought it was something that was really lacking a little bit in the Joe Barry era. I thought they were much better with an identity on defense this past year. But I think from a team standpoint as a whole, it's something that they have to really figure out of who are they and what they're going to do to beat teams. I've been one of the things I should say I've been a little bit critical of with Matt LaFleur is I do feel like sometimes he gets a little bit more focused on what they can do to exploit the other team rather than just focusing on what his team does well. Yeah. And I think sometimes they need to find that identity and just say, hey, this is what we're going to do today. I don't care if the other team is a top 8 run defense. We're still going to run the ball with Josh Jacobs. That's going to be our identity. And then you can, of course correct through the course of the game if you need to. But I think they need to have that if they really truly want to get to the level that they are capable of. And I'm really excited to hopefully see what that identity is for this team this upcoming season. All right, Sarah, before we get you out of here, have to ask you, you had a fun conversation about 10 pro athletes that you would build an NFL team with, and you guys had different conversations. So these are not NFL players. These are not football players, just random other athletes in sports that you think would be fun to, kind of make that transition into the NFL. So you obviously don't spoil everything here, but give us a little taste of maybe a couple players that you had in mind that would make a fun jump from another sport into the NFL.
Yeah, Dusty and I had a lot of fun doing this, and it was thanks to a listener question. So we always appreciate those. But, it was pretty unanimous between the two of us that at quarterback, you have to go baseball. So I'm thinking, somebody with just an absolute arm like Shohei Ohtani would be just crazy to see what happens there. I know it's not, original. A lot of people talk about, what if Giannis or LeBron played wide receiver or tight end? Like, yeah, that would be incredible to just throw it up there and have one of those guys make a play. And then you look at, some of the specialist positions like kicker. Yeah, I want Messi. I want the GOAT. I'm never missing a field goal if Messi is kicking it. So it was a lot of fun. We looked more specifically at sports, so diving a little deeper and then thinking about players. Like Aaron Judge is another one who could be a tight end or wide receiver. So this was a ton of fun. And honestly, if you're ever bored, I recommend doing it because it was great. We were thinking, what about like Simone Biles as a specialist? Like she could do some flips over people if they were trying to tackle her, or Serena Williams. I mean, these people are absolute beasts and have this athletic ability that we could never even fathom, and probably could make some plays on the football field.
Some of those are so incredibly fun. I would love just to see what like Giannis could do. Like, I want to see Giannis on like a goal line fade. Just throw it up to Giannis. Like, how is any corner gonna defend that in the end zone? I have no idea. Like he's 6'11" and can go up and get it. Well, what are you possibly gonna do? Even if you're a 6'4" corner, you're 7 inches and a wingspan for days at a disadvantage. I just want to see. And also, like I would put Giannis. I know you can't put somebody right over center, but right next to the center on the kick team. I want to, like, you're telling me Giannis isn't going to block a few kicks through the course of the season. So I think LeBron in his prime would have made a really fun tight end. I think that would have been a really fun experiment as well. But those are some interesting ones, and I always think that those are fun conversations. There was the sports science too. If you could you get a sumo wrestler? Micah Parsons just had where he tried to move a sumo wrestler and just couldn't even remotely budge him. So I was like, could you use like the best sumo wrestler as like a goal line sort of offensive lineman or defensive lineman where you just get nose tackle where you can't move that guy? I think there's some very fun conversations to be had there. But I thought it was a really fun conversation that you had with Dusty Evely. If you guys haven't checked it out, make sure to do so. Speaking of which, Sarah, I know you and Dusty and Steve have got episode coming out soon. Anything that you want to plug, social media handle on your way out before we get you out of here?
Yeah, just definitely thanks to everybody who continues to listen. And my social media is at Sarah Kelleher 4 on pretty much every platform. And coming up soon, we do an annual episode where we actually invite one of our listeners on the show. So we'll be putting out the Google form for that in a couple weeks. So, if you're a listener, definitely keep an eye out for that. And we're looking forward to meeting somebody new this year and hearing about their Packers story.
It's one of my favorite episodes that you guys do every single year is, bringing on a fan and just letting them be the star of the show for a week. It's really fun. It's really cool. It's a really fun concept as well. And again, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you do for the podcast and joining us here on the radio show as well. Make sure to follow her on social media at Sarah Kelleher 4, and make sure to check out her, Dusty, and Steve over on the Pack a Day podcast on the Wednesday show. Sarah, thank you so much. We will talk to you soon, and we will, like I said, be in touch soon from a radio standpoint as well.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go. We'll talk to you soon again. Thanks to Sarah Kelleher for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call. That's all. Make sure to, again, follow her on social media at Sarah Kelleher 4. It's the Pack a Day radio show. We'll be right back. Do not go. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. A huge thank you to Sarah Kelleher for joining us this past segment. Again, you can find her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4. Also, a reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch and Ellis is coming up here 9 to 11. We'll be talking with Mason and Mitch here in just a moment. Also, join Packers all-time leading scorer Mason Crosby and Hall of Fame wide receiver Jordy Nelson at the Beloit Brouhaha Softball Slam, a charity softball game on July 27th at ABC Supply Stadium that will feature football legends and Wisconsin and Illinois celebrities to raise money for Make-A-Wish Wisconsin. Register for your chance to win tickets at thefanmilwaukee.com. All right, before we get into anything else, Tommy, leadoff show coming up today. Tell us what you got cooking.
Yeah, today should be a fun one after 9-1 victory over the Dodgers yesterday. It's Mizorowski versus Kershaw. Everyone's excited for that matchup today. Brewers look pretty good right now. There was a couple of interesting storylines that came from yesterday's game. Obviously, Andrew Vaughn homering in his first ever at-bat with the Crew. We saw Joey Ortiz is officially being benched during this time frame right now. I don't know where that energy all of a sudden came from with Pat Murphy. And then on top of that, Freddie Peralta, the lone all-star, goes out and shoves against the Dodgers yesterday. We'll have Austin Herdina on at 6 o'clock, Drew Wagner at 6:15. Hour and a half program for all the 6:40 starts, starting at 5 o'clock, right after Wisconsin Sports Daily today, Andy.
Love it. Can't wait. Excited for the pitching matchup today for sure. Excited to see if Mizorowski can bounce back in a major way after having his first real rough outing in the majors. What was sort of the response to that last week when Miz had a rough day and not being like this godsend of like the most incredible player of all time anymore?
Well, and I think he still could be there at this
sure.
chance. I mean, you just, welcome to the big leagues, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's what happens. There's always that moment, I feel like, on the football field that if you're playing, you're a stud in college, and then you line up against Joe Thomas or Tyron Smith or you name it, Jonathan Ogden, right? And you get humbled, and you're like, okay, well, welcome to the bigs. I'm going to have to find a different way to make things happen here if I want to be as successful, and that's what's going to happen with Miz. I was a little concerned the velocity was down for him and not on any other pitch other than his fastball. I mean, the slider still was hitting 96, but his fastball was also sitting at 96, right? And that was more of a concern when he isn't throwing the 102. That's a completely different pitcher, right? You're a completely different pitcher if you're throwing 96 versus 90. Well, it's the same deal if you're throwing 102 versus 96, right? It's the same exact method of he's not the same guy right now. I wonder what was going on with that. Hopefully he gets to bounce back in a big way, and it doesn't get any easier. It's probably his toughest test yet going up against the Dodgers today.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the matchup. We'll definitely be watching this one for sure, and I think he'll bounce back in a significant way. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. Not saying he's going to go, 9 scoreless or anything like that, but I think he'll at least have a quality start today, and I'm really excited. Hopefully, Brewers can pick up another win. Go 4-4 while I was out, but they did win 3 of their last 4. By the way, I love Murph, and I love his comments on Joey Ortiz. For those of you who don't know, asked why he wasn't in the lineup, and he's basically, because the manager's upset because he's not having good at-bats at the plate. I know it might not work for every player, for every team, for every manager, the way that he goes about doing it. But my goodness, do I love it? And the thing I think that makes it work is everybody knows how much he cares about all of his players and wants them to be successful and has that relationship with his players, that it allows him to be hard-nosed and tough on those guys when need be. And I think for the most part, players have responded to that. I love him as a manager. I think he does a phenomenal job. And I had real concerns when Counsell left of like, man, how are they going to possibly replace this? And Counsell had such an amazing run as manager. And I think they got better, which is remarkable at the position. And I love the way that he manages. It might have a timeline. I think sometimes when you manage like that, or whether it's like a head coach in the NFL, sometimes it can grow old at some point, but it really hasn't seemed that way so far in Milwaukee. And I love that level of management.
Yeah, and it doesn't exist a lot anymore. You don't see it a lot.
Doesn't.
And he absolutely still has a taste of today's manager to him. He is
sure.
He is a player's manager, but he's also a guy that's just not going to blow smoke, right? He's going to tell you how it is, and when he's upset, and he's going to let you know. And that is his version of showing respect too, right? He's just trying to be upfront and transparent and open so that he can have those conversations to his players. His players can have the conversation right back, I'm sure, if they feel the same way. But I would like to say that if you're going to have this energy, Pat Murphy, like keep that energy when Caleb Durbin comes back down to earth or something too, right? I mean, there's going to be these moments in the year where Joey Ortiz, there was plenty of opportunity in the first 75 games to bench him because of his performance, Andy, and he just continued to let him walk out there and, fail, struggle, whatever you want to say. And then it was the hottest 2-week stretch of his career right now with the Brewers. He has 2 days where he swings at more pitches out of the zone than he's supposed to, and now Murphy's upset. Makes no sense that was the way. Those were the 2 games to bring it in and create this fuss now over Joey Ortiz.
I wonder if it's almost like hey, we showed you what to do. You did it, and you had this amazing hot streak. Like, we were willing to give you the time that it took to figure it out and find it, because you needed to fail as a player, maybe sometimes in order to find that level of success. Then you found it, you did it, and then you step back into bad habits and then struggled again. Like, this is literally what we've been telling you. You get into bad habits and you're going to go over. If you get into good habits, look at what you can possibly, like, we just showed you what you can do. And so I almost wonder if there was a little bit more of that of like, hey, we let you work through some of these issues that you had to find it. But now that you found it and now you're getting into the bad habits again, we're setting the example right here, right now. It's not acceptable. You can't play like that. And our expectations are higher for you. I think he'll bounce back in a major way. And I'm excited to see how he does bounce back. And my guess is it's going to be a positive thing for Milwaukee moving forward. All right, before we get to Mitch and Mason, let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
It's a good place to be in right now in Wisconsin sports. You have a Packers team that, like we talked about at the onset, has a ton of expectations, playoff expectations for sure. And again, maybe that puncher's chance at trying to figure out a way to get to and win a Super Bowl as well. Brewers are cooking right now. They're playing some really great baseball. Just took out the Dodgers. What was it, 9-1 yesterday, Tommy? And again, have a couple more games coming up. I think this is a great litmus test for them, but they are progressing in a very positive way, and some really fun young players, not only on the team right now, like Jacob Mizorowski, like Jackson Churio, but some guys in the farm system as well. It's going to be a very fun team to track over the next few years. And then, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks taking that very aggressive swing with Miles Turner. I'll just wrap up by saying this. I like the idea that they went all in and were aggressive. And like we talked about earlier, you have to sort of make these moves when you have a Giannis and are trying to be all in and trying to do everything that you can to get to that championship, or keep a championship window open, maybe is what I should say here. I do think this is going to come with a little bit of long-term pain. I don't think this is going to get them to the promised land. And I think in a couple of years, we might look back at this and say, oof, that was a really rough couple of days for Milwaukee, and how this was sort of a pivot point for the franchise. But I understand the aggressiveness. I like it. And as we talked about earlier as well, I do think there will be that ability to pivot back if Milwaukee needs to, and trade away all of their assets for some young players, some draft picks, and sort of rebuild this thing from scratch. And we'll see how that looks over the next few seasons, hopefully with a chance at winning a championship in the meantime, with Miles Turner in hand as their new starting center. All right, we got a lot more to get to. We're going to get to Mitch and Mason in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. More Pack-A-Day Radio Show right after this.